we're joined with another cracker of a person that's joined the podcast today. And it's the one and only Tina Ghazimorad, the editor-in-chief of Manoto's News Desk. So welcome, Tina. And I think off air we were talking about Ghaz, the pronunciation of your name.
Absolutely. And you just did a great job on that because normally I get this Ghazimorad. Is it Tina Ghazimorad? But you said it perfectly. Ghazimorad.
Flattery will get you everywhere. So you and I have been speaking on and off in terms of getting you on the podcast. You're a busy lady, etc., doing what you're doing. If you could go into your background and explain who the real Tina is.
Yes, of course. I was born and raised in Tehran, and I did my bachelor and master both in Tehran in directing for film. And then I came to UK to further my studies. And I did my second master in directing for film and television. What is important about my background and the field that I got into goes back to my childhood memories because at a time that there was no social media or Manoto TV, my family, my grandma, especially my grandmother, they were telling me, sharing their life stories and experiences from before the Islamic Revolution in 1979. And that had a huge impact on me and my journey. Their life stories, because it was just so different from what I was experiencing as a small girl in Iran back then. It sounded like a fairy tale. And my grandma, the way that she was telling me all of those stories, it was so visual that I could somehow envision those stories. And then a few years later, when I was 12 years old, my mom told me something that I would never forget. And I think that changed my life and the path that I chose. Because I remember that she told me she wanted to become a prime minister before the Islamic Revolution. She was young, educated, ambitious, and she was really working towards that. But then when she told me the story, I laughed. I couldn't believe it because my experience as a young girl at a school was just so different that what she said was like really like one of the dreams that you could never believe. And then when I laughed, she said, you know what? Once they can stop you even from being able to envision something like this is the moment that you lost it to them. And that got stuck in my head. And just it drove me into this path of studying cinema and filmmaking because I thought at the time, to be able to envision is the most powerful tool to inspire and bring about change. The vision is the most powerful thing to inspire. And then that got me into studying cinema and filmmaking, and then later on joining Manoto TV, which was like a dream coming true because eventually what Manoto TV did for Iranians, it was something similar to what I experienced when I was a kid and what my family did for me. Just trying to tell me all these stories, trying to shatter the lies and shape my future based on those stories. And yeah, here I am at Manoto TV, and I'm very privileged.
Got you, interesting. What age did you came to the UK?
24 years old when I was 24 by myself. Yeah, I just came here to further my study, and yeah, because my experience at uni in Iran, it was very different. It was more theoretical and I wanted to be more practical. And that's why I came here to do my second master. And then I realized that as an Iranian filmmaker, I couldn't be who I wanted to be back then in Iran.
Yeah, Iranian filmmakers, they're very talented. I always think they're like French cinema. And I think Iranians are pretty much on those kind of lines. It takes something to up sticks and go to a whole new country by yourself at such a young age. 24 is still young. So you get into Manoto, and you always think in terms of the diaspora, two main networks or two main media type companies, and that's Manoto and Iran International, isn't it? Different, but they're two, and then BBC Persia. Three elements in terms of the three main media type companies. What's the philosophy behind Manoto TV, and how did it come about? Because Iranians, they're always talking about stuff and about media, individuals. It's like Iran News International. They talk about it in terms of being backed by Saudi Arabia and Saudi money, etc. Talk us about the background to Manoto.
That's a good question. Very good question that you ask. And I know Iranians talk about such things. And it is, to be honest with you, it is important because the majority of Iranian television channel, as you named it, like Iran International, Voice of America, BBC Persians, they're all backed by foreign governments. What was special about Manoto TV was the fact that it was independent. And it was something that coming from an Iranians for Iranians. And that made it very unique because eventually when you're backed by government somehow or the other, you have to follow the agenda. If the agenda of the US government is to back the negotiations for nuclear negotiations, somehow you need to project that. If they don't want to back it, then you need to project it. And that was the point about Manoto being so different from the rest of them. And I think the other point about Manoto is that I would say, and I'm not saying this because I work at Manoto. When I was in Iran, Manoto started to work. And as soon as I started to watch Manoto, I was just exposed to the whole new world. It was modern, it was friendly, it was intimate, stylish, beautiful, something that was completely different from any other TV channel that I saw before. And I think that's the thing that makes it very unique from the rest of the Persian Iranian TV channels. I think people could connect themselves to Manoto because of that, because Manoto was honest and intimate. It was not unlike other TV outlets looking, sometimes many journalists, they look down on people as if they know everything and they want to tell you how to think and what to think. But Manoto was different. It was just, it was a group of young, talented Iranians who many of them didn't have any background in the media, and they learned everything. They learned everything here at Manoto from scratch. And we're like people. We're like, you don't know this story. I don't know these stories. And let's just discover it together. Let's see what it is. We never tried to say, I know it better than you, and I want to tell you how to think about it and what to think about it. And that's how we could connect to people. The other point was that Iranian people could express themselves freely through Manoto, and then we could shape this huge community of Iranians through their common aspirations, through their common pain. Manoto was the first Iranian TV channel that introduced the concept of citizen journalism. And that's how we could connect to Iranian people, because unlike any ordinary TV channel, we cannot have correspondence in Iran. And so the best way to go around that, it was to introduce the concept of citizen journalism so that we could get millions of correspondents from Iran. So we were telling our stories from Iranian people themselves. And that's the difference. We didn't try to tell the stories that mattered to us, to people. We always try to tell the stories that matters to Iranian people. Because sometimes when you are away from Iran, it's only natural that you get distance from Iranian people and their daily lives. It's really difficult to keep connected. And that citizen journalism concept helped us a lot, which I think that's the value of Manoto. And the other point, one of the most important thing about Manoto is that we were not just news channel. It was everything. It was culture. It was life, connecting to people through life. And I would say that's why Manoto has so much influence and impact, because we could, we could invite people, get their trust through their hearts and minds. I don't think through news, solely news, you can reach the hearts and minds of the people and eventually get their trust. And I would say these are the main points of difference between Manoto and other Iranian TV channels that you mentioned.
Yeah, because citizen journalism is definitely a thing on Twitter now, X. You see so much of that in terms of breaking news, Spaces, which is a social audio component, etc., talking about stuff, trying to get citizens on the ground, relaying their experiences, even though it's banned in Iran. A lot of Iranians sometimes say, oh, we don't have enough coverage and media. We don't have a big TV network to help Iranians when it comes to our struggles or against what's happening in Iran. And then you look at media in general in the United States or in the UK, you've got the BBC, and the conservatives always talk about the BBC being left. They always attack in that way. They're very left. They're always against our policies. And then you look at other TV networks, like we got GV News or we got radio, like talk radio. They tend to be more on the right.
Yeah.
And then you got Fox News in the United States, which is on the right openly. And then you got CNN, which is openly on the left. That's how people perceive it anyway. How does Manoto play that in terms of where you stand? Are you more left-leaning? Are you more right? People will obviously have those kind of thoughts in terms of how it works, because you see media like that all over the place in every country.
That's a very good questions. I love the questions that you asked, Johnny, really, because the translation of right and left are very different when you're talking about Iranians and non-Iranians. That's always a problem from the perspective of non-Iranians when they look at Iranian matters. I would say the translation of left and right are completely different. But in terms of where we stand, I would say definition of left and right really depends on the experiences of different countries and societies, their historical backgrounds, their traumas, what they've been through. And you're aware that through the Islamic Revolution 1979, which was the outcome of the unity between the Islamists and leftists and Marxists. So you can imagine what Iranian people suffered. And then Iran, we are where we are today as the outcome of that unity and what happened in 1979. That is our trauma. So the whole idea that was against modernity, the whole idea that was against progress, being progress, modern, advanced societies. Iranian people are striving for such ideas, devoid of any ideological spirit. And that's where we are. So that's why I mentioned that Manoto is modern. Manoto is who we were before the Islamic Revolution, but a better version of that, because we try to learn from that experience from before to become better. So this is where we stand. I cannot basically, we stand for Iran, a better future for Iran, a modern Iran, non-ideological Iran, from non-ideological, whether it be left or right, but what works the best for Iran and its future, a truly Iranian solution to that future. This is where we stand. And to be honest with you, as editor-in-chief of news, I am against any idea that is connected to that sort of ideology from the past or 1979. And I tried my best as an Iranian. I think Iran case is very different. Iran is very fragile. Iran is not like any democracy, that is not like UK. It's not a democratic country right now as we experience it here. It's very fragile and it needs to be protected from any destructive ideas that basically put Iran into the path of destruction. We cannot afford it anymore. And this is where we stand.
Yeah, thanks for the explanation. Because trust is a hard commodity in the Iranian diaspora. Pretty untrusting as communities go because of the trauma, because of the divide, because people, if you look on social media, and I've spoken about this before to people, how many people have their real name or an avatar of something else that they are, because maybe they've got family, maybe they go back, because there's that fear element. And then that gets exploited in terms of divide. People get more kind of skeptical or untrustworthy. So trust is a massive commodity for Iranians in particular because of the 1979 revolution you mentioned. Media companies, it's pretty hard work because you got to have a philosophy, you have a mission, you have a sense of purpose, but it's hard to keep it going, right? Because financials play an element. For example, I think Iran International is not profitable at all. They were going to close down at several points, and
Government backed, Johnny.
Yeah, it's government backed. So they got like money.
Yeah, exactly.
BBC's government backed. Sky News and stuff, they rely on advertising. So does CNN. So it's a pretty tough space.
Yes.
And the obvious question, and people on their mind, how do you manage? How do you manage to sustain you as a media outlet looking to be a force of good, looking to represent Iranians, be a source of information, whatever it might be? How do you keep it going?
So I don't know how much you know about it. We couldn't really sustain. We sustained for 14 years and then eventually ceased broadcasting in January 2024.
I did not know that.
Exactly. But we are still active on social media.
What a shame.
Absolutely.
And that's because you just couldn't sustain yourself.
Market challenges, regional complexities. It's really difficult to generate revenue. 14 years ago when Manoto started, the whole situation was it was different. People easily forget that they always think that it was like now, 14 years ago. It was not like now. We had private venture capitalist investors at a time 14 years ago who were they were convinced that, okay, this is a new market, especially Middle East is a very hot market and there are lots of potentials. So they invested in the ideas, and for the first few years, we had lots of advertisements from major companies. Samsung sponsored the first Iranian New Year's show that we did, but obviously, eventually, the Islamic Republic banned them from giving us advertisements. And then it got even worse, and they were banned themselves anyway from being active in Iran due to the other problems. And then we managed to keep it going for 14 years. We tried different ways. We moved to the bigger studios. We tried to rent half part of the studios, and it got worse and worse to the point that the investors didn't see any bright future for the idea, and then they stopped investing and financing funding the companies. Eventually, we still broadcast in January 2024. We still, because we were so loyal and dedicated to our citizen journalists, we are still active on social media. And I would say, Johnny, we're still trying to find new ways of investment and coming back. So who knows? Maybe we can do that. We need something. We need an Iranian media for Iranian people.
I totally agree with you. And I was totally unaware of that, actually. Probably because I don't speak Farsi. I've seen some of your videos, especially about cultural stuff and everything else on YouTube. In the US, do they have, I see Iranian TV like New Year, Nowruz and stuff like that. Do they have their own productions in terms, is it more productions based? There's not an equivalent of Manoto?
No, it's not. It's completely different. They've been there for, after the 1979, a few years after that, there were so many Iranian TV channels based in Los Angeles. And I was actually, when I was a kid, I used to watch those with my grandmother. But the level of the production is not, it's just sometimes a one-man show in front of the green screen, just talking all the time. But it's still, to be honest with you, I don't want to look down on them because sometimes people get to underestimate what they did. When they started broadcasting, people were not political as they are today. They were
True.
not. They were not after change as we wanted. My family, we were monarchists, so for us, since day one, we were against it. But it took a long way for everybody to come on board. And I would say those TV channels, they did quite a lot. They were the first they were the first after the Islamic Republic, and they wanted to be done and over. And I learned a lot from them. But that was it for that era, and it's gone.
See, it's incredible, isn't it? Where you've got like 9-10 million Iranians abroad, give or take. Not all of them speak English, but a large majority do. And they all speak Farsi, nearly all, apart from me. But I'm mixed, so I have an excuse. But there is nothing out there really in terms of media company that's modern looking, outward looking, representing Iran, the future Iran, wherever it might be. And then the sad story of what's happened to you guys. And I'm going to ask you this because I've asked this in content pieces on social media. Do you think Iranians support Iranians enough? Or do you think, I asked the question, and it was a philosophical question. I said, we have a strong sense of identity.
Yeah.
We have a real pride in our history, in our food. We coalesce and come together for Nowruz and Yalda and occasions and events and parties and whatever it is. But do we really have a community where we support one another, where we collaborate with one another, where we elevate each other properly? And because if you look at other communities like the Jewish community, for example, October the 7th, horrendous event that happened with Israel and Hamas. The days after, they raised 500 million. 500 million as a community. And my feeling is with sometimes because of the skepticism, because the lack of trust and sometimes the divide between the Iranians and Iranians at times that the regime exploits because it benefits them, it favors them. As a community, I strongly believe we've got a long way to go to live up to that mark of acting as a community, not just around fun things and nice things, but around profound, deep things that are going to make a massive impact for Iranians and Iran. And it starts with things like this. What do you think?
That's very philosophical, and I will get into it because it's an interesting subject again. And I think the first thing that we need to ask ourselves is that what is our definition of Iranian diaspora? What is our definition of Iranian community, especially outside of Iran? Because when we normally speak about diaspora, we refer to those individuals who are constant here on Iranian TV channels. They've got their small political groups. That is mainly who we are referring to. And that is divided. I agree. That is divided. And to be honest with you, especially in terms of political parties, we've never had a political party. You cannot have a political party outside of Iran because you really need the participation and contribution of Iranian people themselves. But then I see this more positively. There is a divide amongst those groups because, as I said, they are very actually somehow ideological. And I'm very open when I'm talking about these groups because these groups who are political active, the majority of the time, they are still factions of the 1979 Islamic Revolution. So you had this faction, the Islamic Republic, who took over successfully, and at the moment they are running the country. But you have many other factions of this 1979 who couldn't get into the power. They had to leave the country, and they were still fighting for power. They were still fighting for themselves, not for Iran, Johnny. But when we're talking about Iranian community, is what you saw when Mahsa happened in 2022. In all of these cities across the globe, they were on the streets together, unified. I don't say there is a problem amongst Iranians, ordinary, real Iranians. Those people who know exactly what they want for their future based on what they experienced in 1979. That is really important. You might think that, oh, Tina, please get over 1979. This is irrelevant. And I would tell you, no, it's not. It is relevant because all of these forces, somehow or the other, are going back to 1979. And they are divided. They are actually a problem on the path of Iranian people getting to their freedom, getting to that modernity, getting to that progressive society where Iranian citizens, they are all equal under the law, but not based on their gender, ethnicities, and so many other things. They're just citizens. They're just Iranians. This is their aspirations. So that is my take on this. Yes, those people are divided. Iranian people are not divided. At least after 1396, 2017, Iranian people, majority of them, they came into this agreement together that we don't want the Islamic Republic anymore. And I would say Iranian people are well aware of those things that they don't want anymore. And they have the same understanding of what kind of a future they want for Iran. They have the same aspirations.
Yeah, you make good points. With Masa Amini, I never saw so much kind of activism and people openly doing stuff, which I saw with Women Life Freedom. It compelled people that otherwise wouldn't. But I still believe that was for the love of Iran, right? That brought people together. I still think one of the reasons why the Islamic Republic has persisted for 45 years is that Iranians need to get better at working as a team.
Right? That I agree.
And some of it is because of the 1979 revolution almost had to become a Lone Ranger, where Iranians integrate so well to other societies, so well. But being a team, coming together, really supporting people within the community. For example, right? Why couldn't a billionaire, and there are several within the Iranian community, why couldn't they say, you know what, this Manoto TV, I want to help. I want to do a piece of philanthropy. I might keep it private, but I'm going to back you. But they don't. Some people say it's because they don't want to get involved in politics. They don't want to have any comeback. They worry about any repercussions. I say, yeah, okay. That's just too easy to say. And if we all go by that philosophy, then nothing gets changed, right? Because if you want change, you need to be the change, right? And is that Rumi quote, alone you're a drop in the ocean, together we become the ocean.
Absolutely.
So you see all these figures, the CEO of Uber, etc., and all these kind of individuals, they have their crocodile tears at times saying, oh, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking, but they don't do anything.
Exactly.
How do you feel about that?
I totally get you, and I agree with you in that sense. And I think this is, again, very philosophical and maybe a historical experience that we've had as a nation over the past few decades. So I think as a nation, we were about to really experience a stability during the Pahlavi era. We were on the path for that. But unfortunately, it stopped. When you're, as a nation, when your life experience is like that, on a daily basis, you don't feel like you're stable and safe. The only thing that matters to you is you and your survival. That doesn't let you to cooperate and think about others or eventually a bigger cause than yourself. And I think that is really an important matter because as Iranians, we've never got the chance to practice it, to learn it. I think one of the main signs of the advanced societies is the fact that many of the people who are living in those societies, they know that there is a greater cause than themselves. It's not just anymore about their survival because they've got the basic level sorted. They're safe and sound. There is a level of stability. So they can think about greater things, greater cause. And then when you experience that, eventually you can move on to the next level. But I think as a nation, even though we moved out of our country, we still really never felt that, oh, my feet are on the ground and I am safe and sound. And there are many things that are beyond me. And those are the things that matters to me. And that expands itself into every single sector that I'm talking about. When we are talking about politics, that's also one of the problems on the way because people just see themselves. Really, it's all about their ego and themselves. It's not about the cause that they are fighting for. But when you move on from yourself, your benefits, your advantages, your personal interests, and you realize that there is a greater thing, which is like your country. There is a cause. Iran. We never had that mutual relationship with our country to give and take. We've never really, it was not mutual. It was taken away from us. Only during the Pahlavi, we were on the path to get there, but that was stopped. Your relationship with your country, you need to feel like this is mutual. My country is giving me everything, and I'm giving back. But then it's just got disconnected after the revolution that we felt like, you know what, I give up on Iran because Iran never gave me anything. Why should I give to Iran? So I think that will eventually stop the moment that we realize Iran is not the Islamic Republic. Iran is different. Iran is this treasure land that gave us everything that we needed as inhabitants in that region to have the perfect life. In terms of the natural resources, in terms of if you want to, in a matter of day, you can go from north to south of Iran and experience 4 different seasons from oil, gas, minerals, outstanding nature. It gives us everything. This is what we need to remind ourselves that this is Iran. This is really Iran. It's not Islamic Republic, and we should not give up on Iran.
Yeah, I thought that was excellent.
I became too philosophical.
No, I think you nailed it actually, because Iranians are great survivors and they adapt and they go on. But it's that JFK quote, isn't it? Where he said once, don't ask
what your country can do for you.
You ask what you can do for your country. And it's that mindset shift. Because Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the Shah of Iran, it's such fine margins. I truly believe that if things were in a parallel universe, that things were going to progress as he was looking Iran to progress with, he would have gone down as one of the greatest kings of all time, in my opinion.
No, I agree.
Because Iran was going to be on course to be the Japan of the Middle East. It was going to have a 25-year plan to be in the top 5 most prosperous countries in the world. Unfortunately, fine margins in life. The rest is history, as it were, with the Islamic Republic. But it's an important shift that Iranians need to make in order to have the real Iran, the true Iran, because unless society or societal-wise, that we start to support and act far more as a community in these aspects, not just other nice aspects of the Iranian kind of things, then it's very difficult to do great things, major things on many aspects. In terms of being Iranian, what does that mean to you? If you could sum up what being Iranian actually means.
For me, being Iranian means having that powerful and strong background that spans a rich history of Iran. I feel like I have this experience, historical soul that gives me a sense of worth. And as Iranian, I feel so proud. As I said, for me, Iran is a treasure and is the cause that I'm living for. And to be honest with you, I don't think there is nothing more beautiful than working towards the cause that is beyond you. Then you feel like I'm not, nothing else matters, but just you're enjoying this sort of working for that cause and then doing everything for it, dedicate yourself to it, and you're passionate about it. That's what Iran, that's Iran for me. Iran is all of its beauties, the nature, resources, lands, human resources, amazing human resource is the yeah, it's just it fills me proud when I feel like I'm Iranian. And I think this is the we need to get that confidence back as Iranians that we have the power ourselves to change. And we need to, one of the problems sometimes is that we don't take accountability and responsibility when it comes to our own role and shares in our historical mistakes. And I think we need to take responsibility. It starts from there. We shouldn't accuse of others, oh, it was foreigners who imposed this revolution to us, or it was Russia, it was UK, it was this and that, because that's easy. You always say, I was not the problem, but others were the problem. But we need to change that and reverse it, and then believe that we have the power to change as Iranians. We need to find the confidence. We need to realize that we're a proud nation and we have all the necessary tools to bring about the brightest future that we really deserve. It's the confidence that we need to get it back. It's the Iranian finding the Iranian solution to rediscover ourselves as Iranians, because that's really important. As you mentioned, Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi, I think that's what he tried to do even through the 2500 civilization celebrations of that. He wanted to introduce what being Iranian means to Iranian people, apart from religion, apart from anything else, apart from any ideology, what being Iranian means to you. And that saved Iranians over time during the history, through ups and downs of the history, because we've been through the darkest. But then we raised, and I think it was that part as being Iranian who saved us. It was our language, the Farsi language, who saved us from Arabs' invasion. It was that being Iranian that saved us from Qajar dynasty and the disaster that happened during that time. This is what we need to remind ourselves. We need to rediscover ourselves as Iranians, and we need to reclaim it back so we can reclaim Iran back.
Yeah, it has to be a renaissance. I think it is. I think the younger generation definitely. Look, the reality is, and I've spoken about this before, but most Iranians, when they tuned into things like Manoto and stuff, and they saw the videos of how their parents were living and the lives and everything else, they would sign up to that today. That's the reality, right?
Exactly.
Let's call it a spade.
Yeah.
Where they had a passport to be proud of, where they could travel the world, where being young in having a girlfriend or a boyfriend and he didn't have to worry about it, and women could dress what they wanted, to be able to have a currency that meant something in terms of it was 70 reals to the dollar. Now it's worth less than toilet paper. So many aspects. They would sign up for that now, literally now.
Yeah. Literally now.
Yeah. And you'll never get uniformity because that's not like that in any society. But I think there is a renaissance led by the youth and the young who are Iran first, in my opinion. Iran first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would say there are Manoto generations. If you really want me to define Manoto in one sentence, I would say Manoto TV is a phenomenon in Iranian media that shattered lives and shaped future
Yeah, I like that. Been the hardest lesson.
of my life.
Mm.
Oh, that's a good question. To be honest with you, I would say it's more of a challenge for me. I would say the hardest, the constant challenges that I have is just about to better myself, to improve myself, because it's such a competitive world and you need to get better and better on a daily basis. This is like a race that you are in, especially when you're in a position that you feel like you're serving a nation. That's even the burden is even like it's too much. It's the sense of responsibility is even higher. So for me, the challenge is to just improve myself on a constantly so that I can be better for my people, for my nation. And that has been the most difficult challenge that I have and I experience, but I enjoy it. I think you as a human being, we have to grow. That is what differentiates us from any other animal. And then as long as I can satisfy my sense of curiosity, that I can learn and grow, that's the highest for me. And the lowest is when is the time that I'm just very passive and there's nothing new around and everything is becoming repetitive, and that kills me because I have to come out of that routine. The repeat is something that kills me, and I think that is the hardest challenge.
That's because you're a creative person, and that robotic monotony of life where you feel like you're an automated robot just continuously doing something as if you work in a factory line. I do understand. What's next for you? What does the future look like?
For me, is to try to bring Manoto back. That's my mission, and I have to do it. Manoto is beyond a job for me. Manoto is like a cause because what I've experienced here, it was something phenomenal. Manoto was Iran, away from Iran for me. Uh, and it was that ideal Iran that as a young, uh, ambitious individual, I could grow within this. I could flourish, I could grow. And this is what I want for future Iran. And I think Manoto being there is the key because, as I said, we need to help, especially the young generations, to find that confidence in themselves as Iranians, that they can be better, they can do better, and they can do it themselves as Iranians. And I think the role of Manoto in that sense is crucial, as it was before. So that's my mission, and let's see what is going to happen. But I am positive. I am positive about this.
Yeah, everything starts with a dream. So I totally get it and I totally understand. Final question. Anything that surprised you in your life and career today?
Yeah, what we discussed about the fact that the people who are supposed, the elite who are supposed to bring about the change, they are so egoistic and their ego is beyond the cause for them that they don't let the change to happen.
Yeah. And I always say, control your attitude or it will control you. In life, we have to understand we're just flesh. That's all we are. At the end of the day, there's only two certainties in life, death and taxes. Not to sound morbid, but it just puts things into perspective. Really enjoyed the conversation. Any way that people can reach out to you in terms of your socials or anything like that?
Of course, they can reach out to me on my Instagram page, which is Tina.Ghazimorad, or on my Twitter account, it's Tina.Ghazimorad, or they can reach out to us through Manoto TV official pages on social media.
Kheli Mamoun, thank you ever so much. This has been Successful Iranians.